Good morning everyone, my name is Michelle. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to another video. It is Saturday morning the 26th of April. In this video we're going to talk about 21-year-old Jonathan Hoang, who has been missing since March the 30th. Still, no one is talking about Jonathan's case. I'm going to give it another try to raise some real awareness for Jonathan. And what more do his family need to do to get his name in his face out there? I've made a few videos about Jonathan, and it strikes me that one young man with autism, Jonathan, gets virtually no publicity whatsoever, while another young man with autism gets all the wrong publicity, i.e. Sebastian Rogers. Where are all the autism advocates who jumped on Sebastian's case? Where are you all? And why aren't you advocating for Jonathan? Let's talk about it. This is the Facebook group that Jonathan's family has set up. Help us find Jonathan Hoang, endangered and missing person. Missing since March the 30th. He was last seen around 7:30 p.m. and his family assumed he was in bed. The following morning, they realised he wasn't. He is just gone. Jonathan likes to go for walks, but he always tells his family when he's going, and he has certain routes that he always follows. This is so unlike Jonathan. It's not something that his family are aware that he's ever done before, like go out at night on his own without telling anybody. Now, I guess Jonathan could have been sneaking out in the past, unbeknownst to his family. That happened in Sebastian's case. His family weren't aware that he was out there wandering around the neighbourhood. Could that be the same with Jonathan? Yeah, it could. But according to his family, he's a big creature of habit. So why did Jonathan leave this particular night? His family believe that someone has got him, that someone lured him away. But the SNOHOMISH County Sheriff's Office, who has jurisdiction over this case, have done sorely little beyond some initial searches. His family have had to go and get all the surveillance video from the neighbourhood themselves. It seems that the cops don't care. There's an advocacy group called Autism Foundation who have taken on Jonathan's case and have written this long piece on their website all about the failings of the search for Jonathan. So I'm going to read this. It's quite long, but I'm going to read it anyway. Response to SNOHOMISH County Sheriff's Office public statement on the case of Jonathan Hoang. And this was issued on April the 21st. We are deeply thankful to the public for continuing to share Jonathan Hoang's story and for demanding the accountability he deserves. Jonathan is a 21-year-old autistic adult with complex medical needs who disappeared on March 30th, 2025 in Arlington, Washington State. This response is offered to address several misleading claims, critical omissions and factual inaccuracies contained in the SNOHOMISH County Sheriff's Office press release and frequently asked questions dated April 18th, 2025. Initial reporting, response failures and Major Crimes Unit delay. The Major Crimes Unit took over the case on April 4th and search efforts began immediately. That's what they claim. What actually happened? This timeline confirms a 5-day delay in initiating a criminal investigation. Now look, the Sheriff's Office say that there's no sign of a crime. So I don't really know why it was handed to Major Crimes. Maybe this is just something that happens in this neck of the woods. That if someone's missing more than a few days, it's automatically moved over to Major Crimes Investigation. But if there's no sign of a crime, then what do the Major Crimes Unit have to do? Maybe that's part of the problem. Given Jonathan's status as a vulnerable adult with cognitive disabilities, the decision to delay Major Crimes Unit involvement was unacceptable. You see, just because there's no sign of a crime doesn't mean that there isn't a crime. Because there's been a sore lack of investigation, so how would they know? They can say there's no sign of a crime, but how do they actually know that? Crucial information was available immediately. Jonathan's shoes, preferred jacket, phone, and other personal effects were left behind. He has never left home without these items before, even for short walks. Completely out of character for Jonathan to leave without his shoes, his jacket, his phone. He always takes these things with him. Now, again, he could have been sneaking out and unbeknownst to his family, he's done this before, but all we've got to go off right now is his family's word that Jonathan is a creature of habit and he wouldn't have left home without these items. He goes for walks a lot. He'd been for a walk earlier that day, but he always tells his family when he's leaving. Temperatures were cold, making his lack of clothing even more concerning. There were clear signs of digital and behavioural anomalies as relayed by the family. Now that is really concerning. What does that mean? The family don't have to say, but that's a concern. So what have law enforcement done to follow up on those anomalies, whatever they are? It's vital to understand that Jonathan, as an adult with autism, someone with rigid routines and sensory needs, did not have a tendency to deviate from established behaviours. Leaving behind key items is not typical behaviour for Jonathan and should have been treated as a serious red flag indicating potential danger or foul play from the start. Despite these urgent indicators, SNOHOMISH County Sheriff's Office conducted no apparent investigation in the early days, aside from fielding 911 calls. There was no proactive outreach from investigators to family, schools, or the community. A school resource officer, not an investigator, was deputised to communicate with school staff. See, this is the thing. Why weren't all of people in Jonathan's life questioned? If Major Crimes Unit is investigating this as a crime, why are these things not done? Unbelievable. The Major Crimes Unit has not maintained open communication with the family. Communication has been initiated by the family, not the lead detective. This lack of urgency directly undermined the investigation. Early surveillance, canvassing, interviews and digital forensics could have yielded far more insight if Major Crimes Unit had responded immediately on March 31st. Instead, search and rescue was prioritised without parallel criminal investigation support, wasting precious time in the critical early window. Yeah, the search and rescue effort is crucial. In the first few days, in such a rural area, like this is where Jonathan lives, very rural area, I can understand why they prioritise the search and rescue effort, because they're hoping to recover him alive. They're hoping that he's maybe, just off the beaten path a little bit and he's injured or something. So I understand that, but parallel to that search and rescue effort, the cops should have been collecting surveillance. They should have been canvassing the area, and we know they didn't because the neighbours who've kindly given their surveillance video to the family said that no one ever spoke to them. There was no canvass early on. Now, that's completely different than Sebastian's case. We know absolutely that an early canvass was done in his neighbourhood. Sheriff's Office claim here the Endangered Missing Persons alert was delayed until April 4th due to system limitation and the review process. Clarification. This is an egregious misrepresentation of the system. And while these actions were eventually completed, they were not immediately, and the delay hindered both public awareness and interagency collaboration in the crucial early window. Jonathan met criteria for EMPA activation from the outset due to his diagnosis of autism, his complex medical needs, his abrupt and uncharacteristic disappearance. The EMPA process involves NCIC entry, Washington State Patrol coordination, and statewide alerts. The Sheriff's Office never confirmed if Jonathan was entered into NCIC prior to the EMPA being issued, despite repeated inquiries. The EMPA was only issued after external pressure from the family and advocates, who contacted WSP directly, coordinated mass outreach to local and state officials, persistently followed up with the Sheriff's Office by phone and email. The EMPA system did not delay this alert. The Sheriff's Office inactions did. Additionally, the Sheriff's Office continues to assert there was no evidence of a crime and no time or manpower to investigate. What? A pattern of dismissiveness that delayed appropriate escalations because ultimately the case was transferred to the Major Crimes Unit due to the circumstances of this case. Instead of recognising the indicators of danger early, the case was downplayed and crucial tools like public alerts and database entries were not immediately activated. Surveillance failures. They claim that surveillance footage was reviewed as part of early efforts. This is categorically false. When the case was transferred to the Major Crimes Unit, no surveillance was proactively obtained or reviewed. The burden of canvassing local businesses and collecting footage was placed on the family. This is insane. What if his family had done something to him? They should be persons of interest, at least in the very early stages of an investigation. So leaving them to collect the surveillance footage is a huge problem. I don't think his family did anything to him, but, just by statistics alone, people closest to the missing person need to be investigated and cleared. Unbelievable. Surveillance video that might have captured movement or known persons of interest were collected by the family and advocates, not law enforcement. Additionally, daily information provided by the private investigator has not been processed effectively. Despite the family and PI's diligent efforts to provide valuable information, much of it has been dismissed as non-evidentiary or irrelevant, with no investigation to substantiate the claim. There was no effort to connect this information to Jonathan's case, leaving crucial leads unexplored. Claim: Jonathan's phone and computer were analysed but yielded no useful leads. Clarification: this assertion has been inconsistent and unverified. Initially, the family was told Apple denied access to data. In response, advocates worked intensively to appeal that decision. Later, the narrative shifted multiple times, raising doubts about whether proper digital forensic protocols were ever followed. No report has been shared confirming whether iCloud or social media data was accessed, if metadata or deleted files were recovered, if forensic professionals were consulted. In a digital age, failure to promptly pursue and transparently report digital leads in a missing persons case involving a vulnerable adult is a major concern. The cops don't have to share what they're doing with the family. They could be conducting an investigation that the family aren't aware of. However, if these things are not done, it's a huge oversight. What if Jonathan was communicating with somebody and that information is there to be harvested from Jonathan's phone and it's not done? That's appalling. I mean, really appalling. Now, we do know Jonathan's iPad's missing, so he's not taken his phone, but he appears to have taken an iPad with him. Communication with the family. The claim: the family have been in daily contact with the Sheriff's Office. Clarification: this is unequivocally false. The family experienced repeated delays in communication. Many updates came only after media attention or public pressure, not through any proactive communication from law enforcement. As advocates for the family, we began contacting the Sheriff's Office starting April 2nd via email and phone. On the initial call, the administrator who answered refused to provide contact details for the detective handling the case and gave an erroneous email address. Unbelievable. Since then, a formal complaint was submitted to the Office of Professional Accountability within the Sheriff's Office. Direct outreach was made to the Office of Professional Accountability Lieutenant. Additional efforts were made to contact the officer assigned to handle complaints. We initiated contact early in the case through multiple emails and phone calls that were left unanswered. These outreach efforts occurred well before any public requests were made for additional community support, underscoring that early communication challenges were not due to high call volume. To date, not one of these contacts has responded. Only one individual from the search and rescue team has communicated with us, but unfortunately was unable to assist due to the case being handed over to Major Crimes. This was escalated through the proper channels with absolutely no response. Furthermore, the Sheriff's Office claims frequent communication with the family was erroneous. most of the contact has been to repeatedly assert no evidence of a crime and no time or manpower to investigate. This approach did not contribute to the investigation's progression, but instead downplayed the urgency of Jonathan's disappearance. With that, on April 15th, we received a text from the detective saying he would contact an external point of contact that the family requested be given approval to proceed. This was not a proactive gesture, it was a delayed reaction to days of silence after the family asked about whether outside help would be permitted. It's false and misleading to present this as a willing collaboration by the Sheriff's Office. Claim there is no evidence of foul play. Clarification, that conclusion was reached prematurely, without adequate investigation. No evidence of foul play cannot mean no possibility of foul play. Look, they could say no evidence of foul play if they thoroughly investigated, if there's no sign at all of a crime at his property. I mean, we don't even know whether they searched the house. There's no unusual activity on surveillance or on Jonathan's devices. Without that investigation, they can't rule anything out, can they? Especially when no comprehensive interviews, forensic analysis or surveillance review has been done during the first week. We are actively working to ensure all persons of interest are appropriately examined and to question how and why certain individuals were cleared so quickly without documentation or transparency. In addition, the information and updates regularly provided by the PI were not consistently incorporated into the investigative efforts. At times, this information was dismissed as unrelated to Jonathan's case, which may have contributed to missed opportunities to pursue potentially valuable leads. iPad tracking. The iPad could not be tracked due to lack of cellular data, so this is the iPad that's missing. While technically accurate, the response is incomplete. Even without cellular data, iPads can ping Wi-Fi networks, logs of connected routers, MAC addresses, and geolocation history can often be accessed or cross-referenced by Apple or internal service providers. Only if it encounters a open Wi-Fi network, though. So it is technically correct that maybe the iPad wasn't trackable. There's no evidence it was pursued or shared, but you've at least got to try. No forensic report has been provided, and no clear explanation has been given as to what steps were taken. Claim the public has been encouraged to help. Clarification, the community rallied, not because of law enforcement guidance, but because of the family and public's persistence. Volunteers handled much of the outreach, search coordination and flyer distribution. The Sheriff's Office failed to support or organise these efforts effectively, often issuing incomplete or delayed statements that minimised urgency and created confusion. Additionally, some public statements released by the Sheriff's Office included inaccuracies and mischaracterizations of Jonathan, which were harmful to the representation of who Jonathan is and his ability to be independent. For example, they implied he was independently using public transport and actively applying for jobs, both of which were false. These portrayals paint a misleading picture of his level of independence and daily functioning. Statements claiming he was barefoot, when there was no evidence to support that assertion. In fact, the family has previously shared with investigators that a pair of his mother's shoes had gone missing by the unlocked deck door, a detail that was ignored in favour of speculation until much later. Look, very early on the family said that there was a pair of his mother's shoes missing. None of Jonathan's stuff has gone, but his mother's shoes have. So was Jonathan wearing his mother's shoes? It makes sense that he would have been. Claim no other agency offering to help has been turned away. Clarification, this is misleading. Multiple agencies did not feel empowered to intervene early due to the Sheriff's Office jurisdictional hold on the case. The family and advocates had to independently initiate contact with the FBI and local legislators to move the case forward. Early open collaboration would have prevented this delay and brought in much needed resources. This is insane. Jonathan is a vulnerable young man whose disappearance demands a serious, coordinated and transparent investigation. What he and his family received instead was a fragmented response plagued by delays in recognising the urgency of his disappearance, failure to activate appropriate alerts, lack of proper surveillance and digital forensics, and resistance to external assistance. Furthermore, the SNOHOMISH County Sheriff's Office did not understand Jonathan's medical state or make any efforts to investigate or establish his pattern of life. His vulnerable and developmental status is attested by school and medical records. Teachers, parents, family and neighbours were not given the appropriate consideration. Instead, the department's initial refusal and delay to accept help has only served to cost precious time and energy that should have been directed towards investigating his disappearance. These systemic failures have not only harmed Jonathan's case, but serve as a stark warning for how future missing persons cases involving disabled individuals may be mishandled without immediate reform. We call on local, state and federal oversight bodies to investigate the Sheriff's Office conduct and ensure full accountability. These concerns reflect first-hand experience and are shared in pursuit of transparency, justice and public safety. We stand by the accuracy of these statements, which reflects both our direct experience and information provided by Jonathan's family, all of which has been documented and shared with law enforcement and outside agencies. Our sole goal is to support a full, fair investigation and bring Jonathan home. We remain committed to transparency and accountability and welcome both from everyone involved. Terrible, absolutely terrible. There's some more recent posts. That was from the 21st of April. This is from the 24th, so I'm recording this on the 26th. My brother Jonathan has been missing for 25 days, so we're now on day 27. Share this post please and scroll towards the bottom to read how you can help. So we know Jonathan was last seen on Sunday, March the 30th, around 7:30 in his home. And they talk a little bit here about what Jonathan might be experiencing and how his distress might appear to others. When in distress, he may withdraw or pace with increasingly stiff movements. When sitting, he may rock backwards and forwards and or hunch his shoulders. He has 2 moles on the left side of his face and 1 mole on his right inner forearm. His phone, jackets, wallet, money, shoes and all other personal effects are still at home. Jonathan cannot drive, has never rode public transport independently or without assistance, and does not remember details like his own address or phone number. He understands the concept of money and that it can be used to purchase things, but doesn't know how to use it himself or independently. He has never been away from home without his parents and could not have left without assistance. His iPad, black, in a black case, is missing, along with a pair of his mum's black slip-on shoes that's used for gardening, similar to these. Size 7.5. We have a few requests and new ways to help in the search for Jonathan. Sightings and information if you think you see him, or if you have any information that could be relevant to his disappearance, do not delay. Call 911 immediately. Take a picture and or video of him for law enforcement and try to speak with him. Ask if he is Jonathan. Jonathan should be able to self-identify himself and engage in conversation. Please continue circulating and sharing Jonathan's missing flyer in physical and online spaces. Please continue reaching out to organisations, media, public officials or other potential advocates who may be able to amplify Jonathan's case and help move it forward. Reacting, sharing and commenting on all posts and news coverage about Jonathan's case. Tagging posts and articles with the hashtag No Leads Ignored, Autism Awareness and Autism Acceptance. If you have capacity, please consider donating to support our search efforts. They do have a GoFundMe and merch. Request for locals. Jonathan went missing from 114th Drive, Northeast, Arlington, Washington. If you are a nearby property owner, business owner, or live in an adjacent neighbourhood, please check your properties again. Check and save any security footage during the window of Jonathan's disappearance, 3:30, 7:30 through to 3:31. About a second search. Technical terrain, private property lines and rural areas are challenging for searchers, which is why additional searches have not been organised, which is a real problem. We know how so many people get missed when an area is searched just once. Search and Rescue strongly advised us against organising volunteers, because of injury and disorientation in the woods is likely, along with not having consent of private property owners. This is a big mistake. The first search was incredibly thorough. 150 plus search and rescue volunteers combed the surrounding area in an arm-to-arm search that included drones, helicopters, a riverboat, infrared, professional trackers, and multiple sets of scent and cadaver dogs. We have no evidence at this point that Jonathan ever went into the woods or off pavement. With that said, if you are local, please recheck your properties and land. Please do. So many people get missed. So many. Finally, to anyone reading who has knowledge of Jonathan's whereabouts, or if you are the one who has taken him, we just want him home. This past Easter Sunday was our first holiday in 21 years without Jonathan. My dad stayed up through the night on Saturday night walking Jonathan's walking route on a loop for 11 hours. The window of Jonathan's disappearance, 7:30 p.m. on the 30th to 6:38 a.m., that must have been when they realised he wasn't there, on the 31st, praying for a miracle. I walked one loop with him and then hardly slept on the couch, hoping and praying for any news or for someone to intervene, to advocate and to help us find him. My dad wrote on Monday, "We know Jonathan is precious like the wildflowers of springtime. We need to appreciate and let him bloom in his own garden. You can be the hero of this story. Please let him go. He knows the way home from the top of the hill. Not a day passes without us raising our eyes to the road, hoping to see his familiar steps, little wave and smile. Every day that passes without knowing where he is or what happened to him is agonising. Please, if you have him, let him go. Please, if you have him, let him go." If you know anything about the disappearance of Jonathan Hoang, please call 911. Please share Jonathan's flyer. I've put this on my community wall, so you can just get it from there. Share in as many places as you can. Share his Facebook group. Share this video. Just share Jonathan's information in any way you can. Jonathan needs to come home. His family are bereft and are in a horrible situation, a constant nightmare. And until Jonathan comes home, that nightmare isn't going to end. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.